Today, a special edition of State of Texas.
It feels like we're not prioritizing public education.
A lot of teachers have left unannounced, and we were a little curious to try to figure out why did they leave?
Students feeling the effect on their learning as a record number of teachers exit Texas classrooms. Investigator Kelly Wiley found districts are scrambling to fill vacancies and keep teachers for the new school year.
Our investigation starts at McCallum High School. It's considered by parents, students, teachers as a haven for educators. Yet it's still facing an overwhelming number of teachers leaving the profession.
It is now my honor to introduce the valedictorian of the class of 2022.
Between the start of her senior year and her graduation, 3 of Alyssa Billspiro's favorite teachers quit. With Austin ISD superintendent sitting right behind her, Alyssa pulled out an unapproved version of her speech.
Teachers are the heart and soul of our schools, and it's time the state and district started treating them with the respect and dignity that they deserve.
Alyssa went to McCallum High School, a performing arts magnet in Central Austin. Teachers we talked to say they love the school and students. Still, records showed during the pandemic, more teachers left this campus mid-school year than almost any other in AISD.
I'm Allison Cashton. I was the head of choral activities at McCallum High School.
Allison Cashton left McCallum in April 2021. She resigned just after having a baby when she says she found out district policy would not allow her to continue teaching virtually.
The facilities are a mess. I would teach when I was pregnant weekly in a class that was 85 degrees with no air circulation. And so then to trust that when they say, come back, even in a pandemic, the air will be fine, it will be safe. To trust that and to trust my safety and my family's safety and my students' safety, it was just kind of the last straw. And I just didn't want to put up with it. Especially for the pay, it's not livable.
This past school year, more than 1,000 AISD teachers retired or resigned, 30% more than the previous school year. Statewide, districts saw a similar surge in teachers leaving the profession. At McCallum alone, teachers wrote in their exit surveys that they resigned for a better work-life balance, higher pay, and jobs outside of education. One teacher wrote she resigned because she was driving more than 2.5 hours to the campus. Nicole Griffith is the principal of McCallum High School.
We see more and more teachers that live outside of the district. And I think that happens in many communities around the state and country where teachers can't afford to live in that community they serve. And I wish I could solve that problem. It just makes me feel sad.
At many Texas schools, teachers resigning in the middle of the school year led to other problems. Larger class sizes, core classes with long-term substitutes.
I had my biology teacher quit halfway through the year, and so for about 6 weeks I had a sub, and I would pretty much just sit in class in my AP biology class for a few weeks and just not really do anything because I didn't really have the resources to do anything.
The principal of McCallum says at one point they were so low on substitutes at a time when teachers were not just resigning but also calling out sick that they pulled multiple classes into the cafeteria for lessons.
It causes this huge ripple effect. The ripple effect that I'm talking about happens in the entire school building because permanent subs can't do everything that we ask teachers to do. So the team of teachers that teacher was on takes a whole lot of the load.
Cashton doesn't think she'll teach again. She says the decision to leave was ultimately right for her family. But the most difficult day of teaching was when she had to say goodbye.
It was just such a hard decision, and I care about them so much. And so I knew that it was what I needed to do, but I didn't want them to feel that I didn't care about them. And so it was really hard. And as teachers, we often kind of put what we need aside to be the selfless ones, to give all that we have for our students. So to kind of have that moment of, this is what I need for my family, this is what I need for me, isn't totally who I am because I'm a teacher, we give. So that was really hard.
We requested data from the top 10 school districts in the state and school districts in our coverage area. Many either didn't respond or don't, as a practice, survey teachers on their way out. But of the school districts that did send us their data, the top reasons teachers gave were switching their careers, changing to a different school district, or family reasons.
And school officials and top state leaders agree teachers simply do not make enough money to live. Coming up, we sit down with a key lawmaker to ask what can be done to keep educators when they can't afford to keep teaching.
I tried my hardest not to think about salary. It was so depressing.
I know someone specifically, she works every extra job she can get. She drives Uber.
Teachers are being left behind.
We aren't, paying our best teachers enough to stay.
We don't want people to leave this profession or not be involved in this profession simply because they can't make a living wage. That's a shame.
Texas school districts fighting to fill vacancies and keep educators who are leaving the profession over low pay. Investigator Kelly Wiley joins us again after obtaining teacher exit forms.
Yes, and one after the other, it shows teachers are leaving the profession unable to pay their rent, unable to pay their mortgages on a teacher's salary.
My name is Mark Reed, and I was a former teacher at Murkison Middle School.
In 2021, with a few weeks left before the start of the school year, Mark Reed quit his job. On his resignation form, he told the Austin Independent School District it was economically infeasible to continue working on a teacher's salary.
As long as I could pay the bills, I was fine, but as soon as I started not being able to pay the bills, then I...
Mark isn't the only one by far. We looked at exit surveys from several school districts across Texas, with teachers saying they're seeking higher paying jobs, that they can't afford to live or keep their homes, can't afford to live in city limits, pay their surging rents, and are taking on extra jobs to make ends meet. The average base salary for Texas public school teachers between the fall 2020 and fall 2021 school years went up 2%. Meanwhile, from 2021 to 2022, the average cost of a home in Texas surged 21%. The same researchers found Austin and Dallas were the two most expensive places to own a home in Texas.
Dan Huberty, State Representative, District 127, Humble, Texas.
What do you think when you hear that so many teachers are resigning across the state at a high rate?
We've been struggling with this for many, many years. It's a big concern, right?
This is a contract abandonment form. We read to State Representative Dan Huberty the multiple contract release forms where teachers said they could not afford the climbing cost of living. What solutions are on the table to fix that issue?
But we have, and I'm not saying it's completely fixed. We put billions of dollars back into the system over the last several years. We did significant increases in pay for teachers in 2019. Teachers have been continuing to getting teacher pay increases. We have the teacher incentive allotment that's been identified. Teachers can get up to $30,000 more a year. All those programs exist. We need the districts and the teachers to participate. Right?
The teacher incentive allotment is not the same, though, as a district increasing base salaries or giving year-over-year raises. It requires teachers to do extra work and be evaluated to get the raise. But TEA records show fewer than 2% of teachers are participating in the program statewide.
I was never interested in jumping through any more hoops. And I always felt like the only opportunity for a bump in pay had to do with jumping through other hoops. And I just didn't have the bandwidth to do anything extra.
You're saying in 2019 you didn't notice a big surge in your pay that made life easier?
No. 2000 when? 19?
2019 is when they...
Yeah, I do remember a nice bump there. And it was helpful. It wasn't nothing. It was definitely helpful. It didn't keep me in the... the proof's in the pudding. I'm not a teacher anymore, so it didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Since 2019, state lawmakers have not approved additional funding for raising teacher wages.
They're going to have to spend more money because there's not going to be enough teachers. The question is, are you going to spend just enough to get it back to where it was, or are you going to really solve the problem?
And this seems like it's a loss, honestly. So
It is.
Because how many years did you spend?
12 years.
12 years.
13 in the district, so a year as a TA and then 12 years of teaching. A lot of times people will say, well, if you have the passion to teach, if you have that calling, then the salary shouldn't matter as much. And to that, I'm adamantly against that idea. Those things have to coexist in all careers. You're either happy with what you do as a career and you can pay the bills, or you're happy with your career and you can't pay the bills, or you're unhappy with your career and you can pay the bills or you can't, right? There's 4 options there.
While state lawmakers do have some impact on teacher salaries through legislation, it is up to school districts to build on state-mandated salary minimums for teachers. 3 school districts in our area, Lomita ISD, Mason ISD, and Richland Springs ISD, use the minimum starting salary set by the state, nearly $34,000. While Maynard, Del Valle, and Dripping Springs ISD have the highest starting salaries in our area, between nearly $54,000 and nearly $55,000.
So districts are in a bind. Teachers are dropping out mid-school year, but those districts are also being asked to comply with a tall task.
It's another unfunded mandate by the state. You're going to do this, 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 this.
What lawmakers and state leaders are promising to do to keep teachers, coming up.
Unfortunately, we do have one staff member that abandoned their contract.
The kids are scared and they're heartbroken. You know, I've lost 3 of my favorite teachers. I've lost my coaches. They're like, what's happening? What's next year going to be like?
Moving forward, we'll be holding staff accountable because it's causing harm to our students.
You're about to lose all of your teachers.
Texas superintendents are bracing for another year of educators quitting mid-school year, leaving students without a teacher in core subjects. Investigator Kelly Wiley is here again, looking at a solution in many districts that might actually be making that staffing shortage worse.
Yeah, on top of a growing retention issue, districts are being forced to comply with a tall task.
Do I say I used to be, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm Nikki Northcutt, and I just left 11 years as a teacher at McCallum High School.
Spring semester 2022 was Austin English teacher Nikki Northcutt's last in the classroom.
I'm Sapna Patel Duchenne.
It was the final year Sapna Duchenne would work in Keeling Middle School.
My name is Ryan Thomas.
And the year Ryan Thomas would leave education for good.
The decision point for me really came when I realized that 3 out of 5 days a week when I woke up in the morning, I felt physically ill at the idea of going to work.
All members voting.
Just 2 months before the school year started, Texas lawmakers passed House Bill 4545. For every student who failed or did not take the state's standardized test during the pandemic, the new law required school districts to tutor them for 30 extra hours in groups no larger than 3 students.
That was one of the driving factors for me leaving. It was, in my opinion, literally impossible to do that.
It's another unfunded mandate by the state. You're going to do this, 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 this. Was it ideal? No, because we don't really have the time for the tutoring. The kids didn't want to come in for the tutoring.
When you pile on this extra requirement, they just feel like they're even more behind, and it made so many of them want to just give up.
The Texas Education Agency says some school districts tried tutoring during the school day, during planning periods, or virtually. Others offered to pay teachers to tutor after school and before the day started, sometimes for less than their salary. Did the passage of HB 4545, in your opinion, cost the state teachers?
I think it probably depended on the district and how that legislation was implemented. We're hearing from teachers across the state that they are overwhelmed with requirements, with the time, with many of the things that are on their plates.
State data showed test scores went up slightly during the last school year, during that extra tutoring time. But the number of teachers statewide was dwindling by record numbers. 26% more teachers quit or retired than the school year before.
Every time we got a notification from a teacher, it was just, deep breath. We've had vacancies from the start of the school year, and it just felt like it never stopped.
Our team pulled exit surveys and resignation letters from the state's largest and smallest school districts. Repeatedly, teachers described unsustainable and unrealistic workloads, lack of support, and longer hours with low pay. Over the last school year, districts reporting teachers breaking their contracts surged 96% statewide.
Moving forward, we'll be holding staff accountable because it's causing harm to our students.
If the State Board of Educator certification rules in a district's favor, teachers could lose their certification, sometimes permanently, meaning they might never be able to teach again. Since September 2021, the state has handed down year-long suspensions to more than 200 teachers who quit mid-contract.
How does suspending teacher certifications help the teacher vacancy issue?
They're really meant to serve as a disincentive for teachers to leave mid-year, take a different job in a different school, or, just leave the classroom unattended without a full-time teacher. And districts really have the choice of whether or not to report these instances of contract abandonment.
Is that a concern?
We definitely take that very seriously. How do we incentivize teachers to stay and not break their contract mid-year, and not make the penalties so harsh that we are preventing a good teacher from being in the classroom?
I feel upset that I have to leave to go, and I really was doing what I was called to do. I will not be taken advantage of, abused, underappreciated one day longer. I just won't.
The legislature is aware of the issues with HB 4545. A lawmaker proposed a bill last fall, a few weeks into the school year, that would have tweaked how this works. It would have taken school districts from a 3 student for every 1 teacher model to a 10-to-1. It also would have given the districts options to get grants to hire substitutes, but ultimately that bill did not pass.
So what can lawmakers do to keep skilled teachers in the classroom? Well, we're pressing state leaders for answers next.
And it's really about changing behaviors and structures and systems across 1,200 school districts.
Coming up, we'll tell you what changes lawmakers are considering to ease the workload and raise pay for teachers in Texas.
God bless Texas, but it doesn't value education like it should.
School districts throughout the state are fighting and dealing with the issue of vacancies throughout their professional ranks, their hourly ranks.
We are bleeding teachers. As a parent, it's terrible to see all the teachers leaving.
In Texas, lawmakers, state leaders, and school districts are all trying to figure out how to keep their teachers this school year. This, as a record number of teachers left the profession last school year, and as investigator Kelly Wiley found, some actually left in the middle of the school year.
That's right. All summer long, school districts have been voting to raise salaries, provide bonuses to keep that from happening. But the question is, will it be enough?
My name is Matthew McClendon, and the last place that I taught at was Northeast Early College High School.
I'm Corey McAleese. I was a 10th grade high school teacher at Austin High School.
I come from a low-income area, teenage parents, poverty, the typical thing that kids struggle with. And the people who made the biggest impact on me growing up were my teachers.
I was driving home one night and I saw a billboard that said, "Want to teach?"
I think I was the only kid in elementary and middle school who was like, I'm going to be a teacher.
After years of working in Texas schools, these teachers quit. Neither has plans to return to education.
And this year was the hardest. And we get talked about, to be a better teacher, you need to do this, you need to do this. But every year they cut our budget, they cut our staff, they cut our supports.
It just got to a point where the opportunities and kind of the pros that I saw were being really suffocated by the things that were starting to really creep up and add in, from pay to whatever. So I just looked up one night at my husband and I was like, dang, I think I gotta resign.
My mental health has been affected by the financial stress I am under. At the beginning of the school year, I began driving for Uber on the weekends and sometimes on the weeknights to make ends meet.
Here in the ISD, teachers feel undervalued, underappreciated, underpaid, and overworked.
Teachers and support staff have soldiered and sacrificed through a pandemic, and we are still here. We have weathered years of financial storms, and we are still here. Despite the alarming rise of teacher vacancies, many of us are still here.
As school districts deal with the fallout of teachers leaving, state leaders are looking for solutions. Over the summer, Texas lawmakers discussed changing laws impacting teacher workload. A task force ordered by the governor is set to release recommendations to lawmakers in February about the growing retention issue. And many school districts are raising salaries and offering bonuses to recruit new teachers and keep those who stayed.
To be able to give a compensation increase is we had to cut deep. And so that is exactly what we did. Without a compensation increase, we would begin losing our employees to other school districts.
Across the state, pay increases for this school year vary. In Austin ISD, the starting salary increased 2%, which is about $1,000 more than before. It is also offering signing bonuses up to $1,500 for special education teachers and new teachers in areas that are difficult to staff. In Dallas ISD, first-time teachers will now make $3,500 more. But some school districts like Harper and Johnson City ISD did not increase starting salaries at all.
Do you think teachers will be leaving for those same reasons because of pay next year?
I think it's going to vary by district, and districts are really competing against each other in terms of increasing compensation and salaries. I do think that this is also an issue that the legislature is going to take a look at, but of course they don't convene until January of 2023, so we'll have to wait to see. I do think there isn't a way to just say, like, let's just increase salaries or let's just pump more money into the system, and it's really about changing behaviors and structures and systems across 1,200 school districts.
The fact that teachers continuously put so much work into this, into being good at what they do, and there's no reward other than, and I don't mean to diminish this, but there's no other reward than what you get from your students.
The Teacher Vacancy Task Force will meet again later this month, and it includes 24 teachers from across the state.
And they're not just discussing salaries, but also the certification and hiring processes for educators. We'll keep you updated. Until then, you can watch our full series and explore the data surrounding teacher pay and the reasons educators say they're leaving. Just go to this story in the politics section of this station's website now. Thank you for watching this special edition of State of Texas. We'll be back next week with another in-depth look at Texas politics.